Yeah, let's do it. Thanks everyone for stopping by and welcome to today's webinar. Your database is your data bank with MAPS coach Brian Gubernick and his co-host Ryan Melville. Before I kick it over to them, I have three quick notes. Please note this meeting is being recorded. I will share the link in the chat momentarily to the MAPS YouTube channel where the recording will be available within 24 hours. Currently, everyone is on mute. However, we do value group participation. So we ask that if you have any questions for these guys, please type them into the chat box. Following the meeting, if you have any questions about today's call or any other coaching programs, please feel free to email us at fasttrack, FASTTRACK @kw.com. That's all for me, guys. The floor is yours.
Graham, thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Everybody, thank you so much for joining us. We know you have very, very busy schedules, especially with next week? Yeah, next week, a lot of us will be, or most of us probably on this call will be in Austin. So I'm sure you're packing it in this week. There is no better cure for creating more productivity in your day than having a vacation or a trip on the calendar just a few days away. All of a sudden, all those things Gary teaches about saying no, it becomes a lot easier to say no when your time's limited. But that's not what today's about. Today, we're actually going to talk about your database being your data bank. It is almost 5 after the hour. We're going to knock this out, and I'm going to have you out by 30 after the hour, if not sooner. So we're going to fly through some material. My intention, our intention, as in most anything I teach, with most anything I teach, I need you to come away with at least one action item today. Not to be too cliche with the one thing, but in all seriousness, if we can get one action item for you, something that you go back into your business when we jump off this call and immediately put in play, or start the engine on something based off of what we discussed here today, it's a victory. That is how I'm defining whether we win or lose with you today. If you get that one thing that you could go and implement. If you don't, for whatever reason, don't get that one thing, blame Graham. No, I'm totally joking. If you don't get that one thing, make sure you put something in the chat, or I'll give it out later on, but make sure you email me and tell me, what your challenge may be, or what you maybe didn't understand, or where you may need some help that we didn't touch on here today. Brian, BRIAN @kw.com. Brian @kw.com. Don't ask me how I got that email. I had to pull some strings, but that's what happens when you've been with the company for 16 years. So I'm driving today, but my co-pilot here, Ryan Melville, Ryan runs the group coaching program, our implementation program, with me. He's been alongside me for years and built out the operations within my own real estate sales team. He's also coached literally hundreds, if not thousands, of agents on this implementation program that we run, of which the database is your data bank is a component of. So Ryan's going to chime in quite a bit today around this topic that's near and dear to him. So Ryan, I want to go to you right before we get into the next slide. Yep. We call this your database is your data bank. What the heck does that even mean? Why do we say that?
Well, because more than likely the deals that you want to do at this point are already sitting in your data bank right now, your database, right? And so we need to come up with a system in order to extract those deals. I share a statistic with my clients, 80 to 90% of the deals, 86 to 90% of the deals that we're going to do are already sitting in your database right now. The challenge is how do we spend time talking to the ones that actually are going to be doing business with you, and not the ones we spend a ton of time talking to the ones that we maybe, quite frankly, shouldn't be engaging with at this point because they're not motivated buyers or sellers.
Yeah, I love that. And when we talk around database, right, I know we have a variety of individuals on this call today, from small team owners, individual agents, to large team owners, to market centers building out teamerage models. It doesn't really matter. This is applicable to all. Now, mind you, if you're a team leader here and you're not a market center team leader, your database are realtors. They're people. If you're a realtor, your database, people, it's all the same. And a lot of what we talk about today is going to be very applicable. But specifically around this database, your data bank, many of you have probably done this exercise. But if you want to prove out what Ryan just said, pull out your iPhone or whatever, you green bubble people use, pull that thing out, If you scroll to your bottom of your contact list, you're going to have a phone number. You're going to have a number of contacts within that contact list. Take that number and divide it by 7. If you take that number and divide it by 7, that is the quantity of real estate transactions that presently sit in your phone over the next 12 months. Think about that math, right? Now, why 7? The average buyer or seller transacts roughly every 7 years. I think the stats are actually skewing lower these days to about 5. But let's just use 7 for sake of math. If you've got 700 people in your iPhone contact list, there are 100 transactions to occur this year from those individuals in your iPhone. That's not Brian Gubernick math. That is factual math. That is, so if you take your database and say, hey, I've got 4,000 people in there, 2,000, 10,000. Heck, Ryan and I talked to someone last week that had 130,000 people. And you divide that by 7, or maybe even be more generous and say 10. I don't care who you are. I don't care how big your contact list is in your iPhone happens to be, that it's going to be a massive number. And what's even going to be a larger, I don't say larger number, but more impactful number are probably the number of individuals that you're not capturing. Today, Ryan, is going to be a lot about how to make sure we're getting our share, right? So as we dive in, I'd like to ask some what I would call
where I met.
I'm sorry. Make sure. I don't know if that was a question or something.
That was a Zoom bomb, Brian.
Oh, another Zoom bomber, Julie Youngblood here. Thank you, Julie. So questions we're going to ask ourselves, and Julie's going to chime in too. Not that I could stop her, but Julie's got some things I'm sure to share today too. Questions I want you asking yourself. And I really, really, really want you thinking about this, because your one thing, the action item you get may come from these 5 questions. Okay. Number 1, do you happen to have a single place where you manage your database and leads? Or do you have multiple tools? So where are all your leads living right now? Or are you using multiple tools? Those tools, by the way, may be scraps of paper on your desk. It's okay. All of us have them, right? There's a big opportunity there, and we're going to talk about that here in a moment. Number 2, do you know the next steps for every lead that's presently in your CRM, in your database? Do you know the next steps for every one of them? I don't mean those that want to buy or sell just this week. I mean those that are looking this year, maybe 5 years from now. Do you know what the next steps are for every one of those leads? Number 3, can you define for us your active sales pipeline? Active sales pipeline, we define as those people looking to do business in the very near future that you're currently incubating, that you're currently nurturing. Can you define for us what that active sales pipeline entails? Who all lives in there? Number 4, how are you rating? How are you categorizing your current leads in terms of their strength, in terms of their quality, as well as the time in which they intend to take action? How are you currently doing that? And then lastly, number 5, what are you doing for those leads not looking to buy or sell right now? I encourage you to snapshot, take a picture of those 5 questions, and during the thinking time that you have scheduled for yourself today or this week, that you need to get on your calendar if it doesn't already exist, during your thinking time, I want you to contemplate these questions. What you're going to find is there's a lot of holes in your game, to which we say awesome. To which we say awesome. Because if you're running a solid business now, yet you have many holes in your business, imagine where it'll be once you plug some of those. That's what we want to discuss with you right now. So your current leads. Ryan, I want you to talk on this here for us. Your current leads, turning them into immediate business. All leads should have these things, right? All leads should be these 4. Touch on these for us. We want to run through the list and just share some of your thoughts based on you talking about this day in and day out.
Collect it systematically. And I think Julie actually taught me this long time ago. Think about when you get a referral. There you go, Julie. Look at that. Think about when we get a referral, we're cruising in the car, right? And one of our friends, one of our past clients calls us, says, hey, I got somebody that needs to buy or sell a house. At that point, what system are you using to collect that lead? right? Because back in the day, at that point, I was just writing on any piece of paper sitting in my car. So when we started coaching and we start getting with our clients, we make sure that the CRM is where everybody is collecting their data, right? So it could be as simple as having an email system that when you get referrals, you're going to send an email to your assistant, but there has to be a systematic way of collecting leads. A lot of them are automatically pulled into our CRM through technology, but we need to make sure that those leads that are not being filled out on a form on a website are being tracked and categorized systematically inside of our CRM, because those are huge opportunities. And I've had it happen where I wake up a couple days later and think about that referral that called me, and I said I would call them by the end of the day. I didn't have any system. I had it written down in my truck, and wake up in the middle of the night saying, damn, I had that referral, and here I am calling them 36 hours later.
Hey, Brian, if we're going to think of this like a bank, those leads coming in, those are deposits, right? And so if you want to continue to make withdrawals, you've got to actively make deposits. And let's be real, though, oftentimes those deposits that require a little bit more thinking on your part, like that incoming referral, those are the 5-figure deposits, right? Or the 6-figure deposits. Those are the ones that require a little bit more thought and are typically going to pay you quicker, faster, and more than, say, something that's just going to auto collect right inside the CRM, like an internet feed.
That's right. So I think what we're trying to emphasize, we're beating up this very first bullet point, which is collect your leads systematically. Business owners have a systematic process by which they bring in business and store it. Realtors, no disrespect, that operate haphazardly, have scraps of paper laying around and call leads back 36, 48, 72 hours later after they've already talked to 7 other people. So collecting systematically, the next big point here, standardized. Leads are standardized in terms of information about each. Going back to your analogy around deposits, Julie, if you go make a deposit at your bank, there's a standard process for doing it. And if you don't follow that process, if you don't take that perfect snapshot or fill out that form, if you're still physically going into the bank, what happens? The deposit gets rejected.
Right.
So there's a standardization of how those things are done. And what we're saying is every great database, the language around each lead is the same. There's a common language. Ryan, touch briefly on categorizing, number 3.
Based on estimated time, so take your leads and think about when they're going to be doing business, buying or selling. So I coach 3 different buckets, right? And at the end of the day, you have to have something. So we have 3 different buckets: hot, nurture, and watch. And those
Ryan,
are
don't
defined.
Get too far ahead.
I'm not getting too far.
Getting
too far. Those are defined by at which they're going to be doing business. The way that they make themselves part of that bucket is based on when they're going to be doing business. And that comes back to the conversations that I'm having on the front end, leaving that call knowing where they belong in my system. That was one of the challenges I had. I wasn't asking the right questions before. Years ago, I would get on the phone with the lead and I wouldn't have the right questions prepared. I would leave that call not knowing where they belonged in my CRM, not knowing what the next step should be for them, and then taking a shot in the dark, and oftentimes it was wrong. And so now having a way to categorize them based on when they should be doing business.
Yeah.
You know, sorry, Brian, you said it. I can't help myself. Imagine if you left today and I stepped into your CRM and I had to take what you've got and go run your business. Could I do it based on the information and the next steps that you've provided? Could anybody do it? Right? That's really what we're talking about.
That's a good question, Julie. I haven't heard you ask that over the past 7 years we've been together. That's a great one. Where'd that come from?
Brian, I'm constantly evolving.
Okay. Nice work. Nice work. I love that. Lastly, storing centrally. I think we all know what that means. We talked around systematic and standardized collection. What are we talking about? What should leads have? Now, to many of you, you're like, yeah, this is obvious. I know this, Brian. I know this, Julie. I know it, Ryan. Okay, cool. But to Julie's point, if I logged into your database right now, would every single lead have this information? Would it be displayed? Or would you be missing bits of information? Ryan, you coach more people than most anybody on this planet. How often do you log into an individual CRM and see information 100% there? Or more oftentimes are you seeing it missing? What's your experience?
I've had one client have close to maybe 80% complete data. No one has ever, and that's over 150 teams coached and thousands of real estate agents part of those teams. I've never run across somebody that had all of the information complete. A lot of them say they do. And then, as you know, Brian, we get into their CRM with them and we start looking around and trying to help them spot opportunities that maybe they're missing out on. And this is one of the things that I go to is missing information.
Missing information is such a huge opportunity, which is why, Julie, I want you to talk us through this script, right? Well, let me back up before you run us through the script. Julie, to you, Ryan just shared some thoughts, but why is having this information so pertinent, so important? Like for many, they may be watching and thinking, this is tedious. Why do I need all this data? I think you've got a different perspective on that. And then we'll get into the script here next.
Well, it kind of goes back to that question, right? If someone had to step in where I left off, could they, based on this information? And for those of you that have teams or are thinking about building teams, there will be a time when the people that are on your team now aren't on your team in the future. And wouldn't it be awesome if, as new agents come and go, you could actually provide some insight based on previous notes taken? Now, I will say this, Brian, I'm not a huge fan of reading notes before we make calls. And I say that because I've never in my life met an agent who read notes to say, yes, I should call this lead. They usually read the notes and they're figuring out a reason not to. And so notes are there as guidance, not as an excuse not to make the call, which is what our next step is really. That's the guidepost there. I don't know if that's where you were going with that.
No. I love that. I love what both of you shared. At the end of the day, I'm big on the running your business like a business, like the concept of running your business like a business. And oftentimes what defines whether something is a business to me versus practice is the predictability of the business and its direction, the predictability, understanding where that revenue is coming from. And you as the team owner or team leader or whoever it may be, you don't even have to physically be there for this revenue to continue to be created. In order for that predictability to exist, in my opinion, you need this information. Even things like lead source. Many discount the value of understanding lead source, to which I greatly would disagree, because that's how you're calculating return on investment. That's how you're determining what's working for me and what's not. And in a shifting market, as we narrow our focus to only those lead sources that truly are working, you'll be behind, you'll be coming from a very, very confused place if you don't have this sort of data. Pipeline strength, all of this all relates to predictability. So Julie, what if you don't have all this information?
You're going to make some phone calls. You're going to use the oldest piece of technology in real estate, the telephone. We call it a little bit of forced lead generation, right, Brian?
Well, it's forced lead gen, and that's something we're very fond of, because people dive in, they do this exercise, and in their mind, they think, oh, I've just got to go in and fill the blanks of this missing data. But what you're saying, what Ryan coaches, is no, you're not filling in missing data. You are using an opportunity that is the holes in your database to create a lead generation opportunity.
Right. What we don't want agents doing is searching tax records and Facebook, and that's not the goal here. The goal is to actually get on the phone and have a decent conversation. And you're going to find that there's, for every 1,200 people, right? When I was doing the implementation coaching, agents would find roughly 8 to 10 deals they could save right away. Right. And in these same calls, they'd find another 8 to 10 deals that they lost. Right. And that's just of the ones that they talk to. And so we do an exercise, Brian, we call it the 1099 we saved and the 1099 we lost. Right. And remember, the leads that are in your database, y'all had an at bat with those leads, which means they were yours to lose. And when you start looking at the math of the 1099 that you lost, my hope is that it motivates you to make sure that 1099 you saved gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. In other words, this should be an exciting call night for your team, right? There should be a lot of energy around all of the money that's inside of that system that if they just focused on it, they could go convert.
Yeah, no, I love it. So the script we're using when we're calling and we have this missing information, there's nothing all that creative here. It's really basic. I know you've all read this, having it been on the screen now for a little bit. Yeah, it is that basic. The focus here is, hey, Julie, it's Brian. At some point over the past couple of years, you landed in my system. I don't know how you got here. Maybe you were looking for homes, or maybe I met you at an open house. Anyhow, just curious, what's your real estate game plan this year? What are your real estate plans for the rest of this year and next? And then I'm quiet. Oh, I don't really have any plans. No plans? Yeah, that got awkward. That
It did. That's how it's supposed to feel, though.
But that's exactly what it's supposed to feel like. And when they start, you know what? We're not really thinking about doing anything. You're going to carry me out of a box in this house. And, you know, how many times have we heard that? You know, everyone that says that ends up moving 3 years later. Point being, though, you're going to ask that question. And then at some point, you're going to say something like, okay, great. Well, I intend on following up with you based on this conversation in X number of months. Hey, by the way, I have your phone number, obviously. I think I know your property address. We were just talking about it. Hey, would you mind sharing your email address with me? I like to send out information to my clients to keep them apprised of what's going on in the market. So we're using all of these missing holes as an opportunity to ask this question and then follow up once I build rapport with, hey, you know what? I need that email address. Or, hey, I've got your email address and your phone number, but what's your property address? I like to mail different gifts and tchotchkes, Julie, to my clients and prospects. I'd love to get something over to you.
You know what, Brian? I have a new favorite question that I have to share with everybody, and I really think they should write it down.
Well, okay, this wasn't pre-approved, but go
No,
ahead.
it wasn't. Well, don't worry. I've been using it. Well, I say new, it's like a couple years old. So
Okay.
one of my favorite questions when I'm cold calling or when I'm talking to somebody who I haven't spoken to in a while is, hey, Brian, just out of curiosity, if you did have a real estate question, who would you call?
Got it.
Because I want to see it's not, do you have an agent, right? We've all heard change your do's to who's. So if you did have a real estate question, who would you call? And they usually are going to say, you know what? I don't really have anybody, because they call Google, right? And then you offer to be that real estate resource for them. And then you gather the rest of the information.
Smart. I love it. That's really good. So a lot of words here, but I am going to read it because it's important. So in doing this task, you've now taken a project that seemed daunting at first and turned it into forced lead generation. You'll be amazed by the results. I can guarantee that you'll generate some solid nurtures and a handful of sales appointments. This exercise, having gone through it with hundreds of clients like we have, we expect you, if you call everyone in your database, you're probably going to connect with about a third of all the leads. Now, you've got to try a couple different times, but you probably get a third. Gathering that information for your leads, complete information for the leads, is a goal, but the primary goal is to generate business. And I don't want to lose sight of that, which is why there's so many words here, and I read it. Gathering information is great. Getting business is greater. You follow me? So this exercise that we tell our agents to go do is about gathering information, but the byproduct, the more positive byproduct, is the fact that they're going to find themselves getting coffee or having living room conversations with more people than they anticipated. So Ryan, you started talking around this. Let's talk about categorization of leads. We teach hot, nurture, watch, but it could be A, B, C. You know, it's hard to teach with Julie when she goes running out of the picture like she just did. But Ryan, hot, nurture, watch. Talk to us about this.
All right. So like Brian and like Julie said, regardless of what you're using, right? We use hot, nurture, watch. You use 1, 2, 3, ABC. It has to be uniform. If you have a real estate team or you're running the team ridge model through a brokerage, you can't have 5 different agents with different definitions of where their pipelines sit, right? Where a hot means something to somebody else and they're using the A model. Everybody has to be on the same page. That's why we have getourplaybook.com. They have to be on the same playbook. All right. So take your leads and start putting them into those 3 buckets. I use that word all the time with our clients, right? You got a bucket labeled hot, nurture, and watch. And you can see here the ones that are going to belong in the hot bucket. We like to consider those, and we call those now clients, now business. That's your most immediate source of income, more than likely, unless you have deals that are already pending. But these ones that are not pending, your hot pipeline is going to be your most immediate source of business. And those are going to be those looking to do business in 90 days or less, 3 months. All right. So you're going to put those in your contact, your voice to voice, as it says there, is going to be different. Think about it. If you have somebody looking to buy or sell a house in the next couple months, you're going to be talking with them a lot more frequently than you would be if somebody's looking to move to Scottsdale, Arizona in the next 15 months, right? I'm probably not calling them one time per week over the next 12 months just to make that deal happen in a year, right? I'm going to be talking with them probably more like once a month, right? They're a little bit more in the long-term side of our database. And then you have those in the middle, we call those nurtures. And those are anyone looking to transact between 3 and we say 6 months, 6 to 12 months, have some sort of definition at this point. So we have 90 days, 3 to 6, and anybody 6 to 12 months out, you would consider them a watch lead. And so I use 12 months kind of loosely.
Well, just to drive home the point, the key here is, we use terminology like hot, nurture, watch. We don't care if you're using A, B, and C, 1, 2, and 3, whatever you're using. I think the key takeaway here is if you're treating all leads the same, you're doing it wrong. What we typically find are agents treat hot leads a special way, and then they just have everybody else. And what we contend is that, yes, your hot lead should be treated differently, but everybody else should be further categorized so that you can have a more predictable, sustainable business. You know exactly what's going on each and every day, week, and month. Okay. Now, Ryan, stick with it because I know one of your favorite things is this law of 100. Now, we only have a couple minutes left, so let's not get too crazy here, but give everybody a little idea around what this law of 100 means.
Law of 100 means that let's go find your hottest leads in your system. And let's cap that at 100. We found that doing our analysis of teams around the country, when you exceed 100 leads, active leads, and I'm not talking about sphere of influence or the newer leads that are coming through your sales pipeline. I mean the leads that you've engaged with. We found it near impossible for a sales agent to keep up with more than 100. When you break that 100 threshold, Julie, follow-up fatigue, right? It sets in, and we start making phone calls. And we actually stop making the phone calls because we have too many leads. And this is when we start with our clients right here, this is where we get most of our impact from the beginning. Is we take somebody that has 1,000 leads sitting in their CRM. They don't have a plan for you have a plan for a handful of them. But when we start figuring out who your top 100 may be, it's game changer for them because now they have a plan, right? Now, Brian said it, you said it a few times, predictable. And that's the word I like to use. In real estate, we strive for that, right? Is that we have a predictable business, and this is a way to do it.
Hey, how about that it caters to human nature, which is we're all cherry pickers. Why not just let our agents be cherry pickers instead of being frustrated when they don't call leads back fast enough? Say, cool, only pick the very, very best. And now they own it, right? You told me these were the best leads.
Yeah. At the end of the day, and you read that correctly, and I should go back to let you read it one more time. The fewer leads that your agents have on their dashboards, the fewer leads you have on your dashboard, physical dashboard or metaphorical dashboard, whatever it may be, your dashboard, the fewer leads you have in front of you, the more success you're going to have. And Ryan said this is where we make the biggest difference right out the gate with our clients. This is also maybe the area we get the most initial pushback because there's this feeling that, hey, I'm more successful or I'm in a better spot the more leads I have on my plate. And what we'll tell you through our study analysis and personal experience is it's the opposite. The fewer you have, the greater success you're going to have. The kicker here is, and this was the eye opener for me, if you've got 15 to 20 hot leads, it's impossible to go work more than just that if they're truly hot. If you as an individual agent have 15 people looking to transact real estate in the next 30 days, we're working around the clock. I don't care who you are. So the point is you can't even work more than 15 hot leads. How could you possibly work 700 more leads that are currently on your dashboard? You can't. So 100 was the number we found. Some of the best agents we know, though, get it down to 60, 50, 40, even 30. So 100 is a great place to start. Okay. Really big idea. All that being said, guys, we're a couple minutes past the half hour. We run our implementation training program, our weekly coaching program. Go check out getourplaybook.com. You'll get more detail on the program. You can sign up, register there. Ryan drives that. Julie and I chime in. We want to see you there. We think that if you got some value out of the 20 or 30 minutes we've been talking today, you should see us over the course of multiple weeks. I think that you'd very much get value for the small charge that we're putting it out there for. So all that said, Caitlin Saunders, did I forget anything? Anything else I need?
That's it. Getourplaybook.com.
Julie, Ryan, thank you all so much. Everybody hanging out with us today. We appreciate you. We look forward to seeing you next week at Mega Camp.
Let's
Thanks,
go.
everybody.
See you guys.